All right. Before we get going any deeper into the live stream today, I wanted to do a YouTube Q&A because I had a really good question pop up from TheKonfusion. He asked a question on my final review of Baldur's Gate 3, and I thought it was a good enough question that we could do it as part of the Q&A series that we've been doing for Baldur's Gate 3. So in the post, those of you who are watching this live, we'll just be talking about it, but on the post end, we'll have the text up here. So somewhere up here will be the text. TheKonfusion asks, why do you choose to have a fixed party for each playthrough? I'm just curious. Well, Confusion, that is a really, really good question, and I have a pretty succinct answer, but I will ramble a bit because that's how I roll. If you look at the basis of what Baldur's Gate 3 is, it is based on the tabletop version of Baldur's Gate 3, or the tabletop version of D&D, essentially. And in the tabletop version of D&D, when you set out on an adventure with your friends, what's up, Pablo? When you set off on an adventure with your friends, you're choosing to do a campaign. So traditionally, when you do a campaign, you sit down with your friends, you schedule a session out, whether it's Friday nights, Thursday nights, whatever it is, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, twice a month, whatever those sessions are, but you arrange those sessions with your friends, and your friends play those characters throughout the entirety of the campaign that you're about to embark upon. There are very few GMs that I know who will actually kill off player characters during the middle of a campaign. Generally speaking, there are revivify spells and resurrect spells and ways to bring people back from the dead so that players don't lose their characters. And so the idea is that you're embarking on a great big adventure. You are the Fellowship of the Ring, so to speak, and you are going off on this year-long trek to do whatever it is that the campaign is all about. And if you've ever played through any of the official D&D campaigns, they're generally levels 1 to 12, levels 1 to 13, somewhere in that ballpark. You don't change party members in the course of that campaign. The people you start the campaign with are the people you end the campaign with, and you go through that journey together. 3, 4, 5, 6 of you, 7 of you, however many. Watch Critical Role, watch the Dungeon Dudes. There's lots of examples out there of people who play campaigns for Dungeons and Dragons. So the idea that Baldur's Gate 3 is a video game, I understand that some people have that mentality, and so they treat it like a one-shot adventure, where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go to the game store this weekend, and rather than play a campaign, we're going to play a one-shot adventure. And the one-shot adventures, if you've ever done a tabletop one-shot adventure, is where you're sitting down for one night to do one session. Everybody plays characters that are different at that session, and then when you come back next time, you play a different one-shot adventure. And those one-shot adventures are meant to be played in a matter of a few hours, and that's it. But campaigns are meant to be played over long periods of time with the same people. So, understanding that this isn't exactly the same thing as an actual tabletop module, we are playing, a CRPG, which is an adaptation of D&D. It is still at its core a Dungeons and Dragons module tailored for the level 1 to level 12 experience, which is just like all the other modules that exist for the tabletop version of the game. So I have always been a tabletop gamer before I was a computer gamer. Before I ever got into computer games or console games, I was into tabletop stuff. And so for me, I treat Baldur's Gate 3 like I treat a module, or like I would treat a traditional Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So for me, when I start a playthrough, I am making a commitment to going through the adventure with this party of characters. So we've got, in the case of my first playthrough, I went through with Gale, Lae'zel, and Shadowheart, and I chose to romance Shadowheart. I did have a couple of instances where I broke off and would bring another party member along to go do a quest, but I think that only happened 3 or 4 times throughout the entirety of my first playthrough because I treated that like a campaign. But in any good D&D campaign, there will be certain moments in those encounters, in those campaigns, where the DM might say, "Hey, you know what? This is a very specific mission. You need to take this person with you because they're going to get you into the Thieves Guild. Now, the difference between like a tabletop campaign and this is that in a tabletop campaign, you could still take that person along with you and all of your companions at the same time, generally speaking. There may be exceptions to that rule, but you don't really have to worry about the four party or the four person party limitations, but you do have to worry about it here. So in this case, my preference is just it's going back to my tabletop roots. I like to play the campaign. I'm not treating this as a one-off session. So for me, it's all about the characters that I'm choosing to go through the entire storyline with, the relationships that I build with them along the way, raising the relationships with them, getting in their good graces, having a romantic relationship with one of them. In this case, this particular playthrough, because I'm on my sorcerer now, which is my second full playthrough of the game, I'm taking a completely different party. I have Karlak and Will in the party. I will be romancing Karlak, and I do have Shadowheart at the moment, but she's literally just here to fulfill the cleric needs until I get Halsin. Then I'm going to pull Halsin in for a little bit, and then I'm going to switch over and get Jaheira as my full-time member once we get to Act 2 and I get Jaheira, and then I will finish the game with Jaheira in my party as a full-time member. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Fixed party for each playthrough. Now this also ties into me not caring about doing a completionist run for each time I play through because Larian has provided me with the option to have lots of different permutations depending on the party members that I have and the things that I do and the alignments and the choices that we make. So rather than try to get a completionist run out of my Druid campaign, once I had 116 hours, I was done with the main campaign. There were a few things in the city I could have chosen to continue, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to save those for different playthroughs because the next time I go through, which is this playthrough, I have Will in my party, and Will and his dad have some very unique Baldur's Gate history. Karlak also has some very unique Baldur's Gate history as well as interactions with Lord Gortash. So this time around, I'll be doing a completely different series of events in the city of Baldur's Gate once I get there that I didn't do with my first playthrough because that first playthrough I didn't need to do it because I was focused on a different set of character companions and I was focused on different objectives because my objectives aligned with the objectives of my party members from that first playthrough. So in this playthrough, it's very much about what are the objectives of Karlak, what are the objectives of Will, how do they align with my objectives, and then also when I get Jaheira in the group, interspersing Jaheira's objectives in there as well. So that's sort of the shortish answer of why I choose to have a fixed party for each playthrough of games like Baldur's Gate 3 because I do treat it like a tabletop campaign, not a one-shot adventure. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, for anybody else out there, if you would love to see one of your questions featured in one of my YouTube Q&A sessions, make sure to just drop those down in the comments below. I read all the comments everywhere. Put them in Discord, wherever you want to put them. And I will pick usually once or twice a month. I'll pick one. Sometimes I've done more than that, but it just kind of depends on what questions are coming through. The ones that I feel like I can actually realistically answer in a meaningful manner, a thoughtful manner, those are the ones I get to. So hopefully that answered your question, Confusion. To everybody else, we're going to be continuing the live stream, but if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update or any of the stuff. And since today's the first time I'm doing multi-streaming, I guess I should add, if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. If you're over on Twitch, make sure to, I forget what it's called. I think it's just subscribe, right? Or is it follow? I think it's just follow. Because subscribe on Twitch means to actually subscribe to the channel as a paying member. So I have to remember, I'm gonna have to work out new technology, new terminology, I should say, now that we're doing things in multiple places, um, and go from there. So thanks everybody. We're gonna be continuing on from here. See you next time.